Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Tekken 4, which was released in 2001-2002 on the Namco System 246 arcade hardware. As you can see, this is just how the system starts up, where it says like Tekken 4 is going to be starting momentarily. Then it gives you your parental advisory warning. And of course, just like any of the 246 games, it'll tell you your title and your serial number. And then here's the title screen, so let's go ahead and get right into this. And as you can see, there are a selection of characters here. A couple new ones, a couple of old ones, as you've seen in my previous video. The notables here are Christie, Marduk, and Combat.
Here we go.
There are a couple of characters who actually had returned from Tekken 2, which were like Kazuya and Brian Fury. Actually, wait, no, Brian Fury was in Tekken 3. But yeah, Kazuya wasn't in, and also, oh yeah, it was Lee. Lee wasn't in Tekken 3. But what was cool is that some of those characters actually were in Tekken Tag Tournament, which actually came right before this. Because the way that it worked is it was Tekken 1, Tekken 2, Tekken 3, Tekken Tag Tournament, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, Tekken 6, Tekken Tag Tournament 2, then of course Tekken 7, Tekken 7 Fate of Retribution. So if you're watching this years from now and you're playing like Tekken 23, that's kind of the order they went at this point in history. But the character that I chose to play as here in my first actual captured footage of this arcade board is Christie here. She basically has the same kind of fighting style as Eddie Gordo did in the previous games. But, she's a different character, and I'm guessing they probably varied up the moves a lot.
Round 1.
And now I can remember the first time ever playing Tekken 4, I saw Paul Phoenix and I was thinking to myself, oh my god, they have Paul Phoenix without his crazy, like, flat top, Guile / Duke Nukem / name any other character who's had a blonde flat top ever. But yeah, I was surprised at seeing this costume, thinking, wow, he actually sheds, like, the flat top hairdo that is more or less his signature. You know, because there's never been really a Tekken game, really other than this one. I think he might have it as a, alternate costume some of the later ones, but until this one, there hadn't been a Tekken game where he ditched the hairdo. And honestly, if you ask me, I thought he looked kind of weird because, you know, it's kind of one of those things you just get used to. It'd be like if you saw Ryu from Street Fighter and he had like a military cut all of a sudden instead of just his regular hair. And now this, like, jungle stage kind of reminded me of the stage that they had Eddie Gordo in the, Tekken 3. And what was funny is when I actually played that, I was like, oh wow, the actual water was splashed up by her head when she flipped up like that. But what I was saying is that the actual jungle stage there makes me think of the Eddie Gordo stage, since that's what his kind of was, and it had that really cool music. And now, for the first few stages, which I was actually surprised, because when I actually tried to play this earlier, it was stage 3 and stage 4 that I kept losing at for some reason. But I think it was until stage 4 or 5 that I was completely not losing 2 rounds. And that's one thing I like that Christie does sometimes, is she'll like kind of end her combo in such a stance where she's just kind of like just laying there, so it's kind of like, yeah, I defeated you, just gonna rest here for a while, I'm good. And whenever I see her doing moves like the flips with the legs and everything, and she does have the move that the move where she kind of does that like V with her legs and kind of like twirls around. Of course, being a big Dead or Alive fan, it makes me think of La Mariposa, because she has a lot of those moves as well. And I know I'd made mention of it in previous arcade videos, but of course, Lei Wulong there was basically a reference to Jackie Chan in some of his movies of the time.
Round 1.
Now here's Lee. As I had mentioned, he makes his return because he had not been shown in Tekken 3. So he makes his first canon return, if you will, since Tekken 3. Because I don't know if I probably had mentioned it in all my other games, but the Tekken Tag Tournament games are not really canon with the series. They're kind of like your King of Fighters 98 Dream Match type thing, where you basically take characters who are either A, dead, or B, never fighting anymore, and you add them back into the game, because it's kind of cool to have, like, say, character number 1 then dead character number 2 fight when they never could have.
Round 2.
And,
Fight.
of course, Tekken 4 here, after 3, was the first canon version of Tekken. So it was kind of cool to have some of these characters back that had previously not been in the game. And just in case you're wondering, in the home version, Eddie Gordo is actually unlockable. So if you really want to play as Eddie Gordo and have his exact moves, then he is fully unlockable. Now, the one thing is, if you have any version other than version D, a lot of the characters you actually see in my
You win.
selection screen
Final round.
will not be playable until they're time released, because, as I probably had mentioned in multiple arcade videos, a lot of arcade games believe in a system called time release for the getting new characters. So let's say today you see there's, let's say, 10 characters. Maybe in a month a character or 2 will be unlocked. In another month another character or 2 will be unlocked, and so on. But with version D, most if not all the characters were actually fully unlocked from the get-go. And now this match with Law was actually the first one I've lost. I think I lost it twice, and you'll see at this point I've switched over to her second costume. The first costume with the bikini top there you actually get by pressing a punch button, and then the second costume here you actually get by pressing one of the kick buttons. And actually I had done it by mistake, and I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm never gonna beat him now. Yeah, it was either 2 or 3 times I lost to Law, and then sure enough, when I accidentally picked the wrong costume, I end up beating him. But what I done was, ever since this match, I kept with this costume because I figured, why not keep it all the same then? But one of the cool things, the supercharged, which was left punch plus right punch plus left kick plus right kick, which existed in previous games, has been removed in this game, and it was quite useful for making it your attacks register as counter hits, though it had been put back in again in Tekken 5, which at the time they had written the history that it was actually the latest in the series. And apparently Tekken 4's airport stage is actually heavily reminiscent of the airport stages from the King of Fighters games. And now, of course, here's Kuma. And this fight I didn't lose once, but you're going to see something that I have never done, and I don't think I will ever do ever again. But honestly, I think the announcer should have said something to acknowledge this, since it's like kind of such a rare occurrence. But you'll see that I got the great there. And then in the second round, I'll spoil it for you here. You're gonna see me get a great again. And I don't think I've ever done that ever in any Tekken game. I think he should have gone double great. That would have been really cool, because it's just one of those things that even if you tried, it'd be very hard to do. Even if, let's say, your friend was playing against you. And it just was one of those like, wow. I definitely thought that he should have been double great or something.
You
Hey
And of course, another thing that was new to the series in Tekken 4 was the ring-based play system, with a lot of these more confined stages as opposed to like the more wide-open stages. And it says as the characters play within a ring-looking stage, player can push his opponent to the wall and then beat him up while he's between the wall and the player. And that kind of was a first for the series at this point, where you didn't see this because in the earlier Tekken games, basically you did have background elements, but they never actually got in the way. They were just kind of there, if you will. And Craig Marduk here, he's actually another one of the new characters in this game. I tried playing as him when I was thinking of recording the footage, but I can honestly tell you, no matter how hard I tried, I could not get a decent gameplay with Craig Marduk there. So, unfortunately, it didn't happen. And, yeah, what I ended up doing here is, Christie as my gameplay for this. And now here's your cutscene for the final stage. I'll let you take a look at this, even though it's the same thing from last time. And now one of the actual cool things in the actual console version for PlayStation 2 is that some of the characters have their own final bosses. Like, for instance, if you play as Kazuya or Hwoarang, you get Jin as a final boss. If you play as Lee, you get Combat as a final boss. And if you play as Heihachi, you get Kazuya as a final boss. But none of that actually happens in this arcade version here. So, if you actually want to see that, you need to actually play the PlayStation 2 version. Because I actually tried a gameplay as Heihachi, since unfortunately all the history all the like Wikipedia entries, Tekkenpedia, you name it, any of the wikis, anything they ever describe is about the console versions, but unfortunately they never make mention that's what they're talking about. I guess they figure that you would just assume that they are talking about the console version because, you know, what kind of crazy person has the arcade version, but, you know, some of us crazy people actually do, since, I know I made mention of it earlier, but this is actually the real game running on my real Namco System 246. This is an emulation. This isn't PlayStation 2. This is absolutely the real deal. And I know I'd made mention of this in my other video, but I definitely have to say, like, Heihachi as a boss, him being like a regular character, is just always disappointing because you don't get like any true ogre or any other crazy boss or even devil. And just like in a lot of my other Tekken videos, here's where it shows you how you've defeated everybody. And just as I made mention in my previous video, if you would hear the 246 right now, when it's actually showing those credits, you'll hear the DVD loading like crazy, because what it's basically doing is it's loading the next scene and the next two characters. So, yeah, because I know I'd made mention that unlike the Naomi 2, where it actually would load a disc game onto its DIM board, this system is actually loading the game content off of the DVD in real time, so whenever it needs to fetch a piece of data, it looks for it, whereas with the Naomi, it actually just preloads everything into RAM, and then it can get stuff a lot quicker. But I know I always say it, but I definitely like it how it shows you the exact thing you did. And it's kind of cool how with Tekken it kind of interleaves it with the credits. Well, at least some of the Tekken games. They don't all do that, but it kind of makes the credits feel like they're going a little bit quicker, because you don't have that oh, now here's the credits, this guy made the sound, this guy made the graphics. You're not like, oh, well, this is kind of boring. And I know I always make mention of that, but I still say it's cool that you have these animal fighters that you can actually fight, like the grizzly bear, and you can, like, beat him up. And it goes without saying, but, Tekken 4 for Namco 246, especially now seeing this capture version I've just made for you, it has excellent graphics. I would say they're comparable to PlayStation 2 in 480p mode, since you can actually do that by holding and pressing two buttons on startup. I believe it's like X and triangle, and then that will trigger it, and it'll actually go into 480p mode as long as you have a component cable, and then you can fully do that. Now, you'll notice right on the bottom there's my Heihachi gameplay I had mentioned earlier, which was 20 minutes and 6 seconds. Not the greatest, but it was just one of those where I really wanted to see if these alternate intros and alternate bosses were possible. And as I'd made mention, in the arcade version here, no, there is no alternate bosses. Everybody faces Heihachi, and as I called it, his sumo wrestler diaper, with kind of like a girdle around his midsection, since I guess he doesn't want to show that. But he looks like he's in good shape, so he shouldn't be that modest about it. But I guess he thought it was enough that you could see his butt. But as I said, Tekken for Namco System 246, excellent game. Highly recommend it. Well, this has been another Game Nexus Arcade video, and I'll see you later.